This video is brought to you by Chains of Freedom. Stick around at the end to find out more. Every now and again I wonder if I've outgrown the life of a video game correspondent, but I shut down such doubts with one simple question. Do I still actually like playing video games? Do I still want to spend portions of my free time playing video games? Yes, I do, assuredly. But when it comes to playing games to unwind and get away from playing games as work, my preference is usually to play something I've played before. Discovering new games and experiences crosses over too much into work territory for me. I'm trying to disengage that part of my brain. So there are games that I can always put on if I want to do something with my hands for an hour. Balatro would probably be the most recent addition to that list, but everything else would be the usual suspects. Dark Souls, Half-Life, Quake 1, Minecraft, a few other things I'm extremely familiar with. Recently, for example, I replayed all the games on the Castlevania GBA and DS collections on Steam. I'm always down for a bit of filling out the map while slicing up skeletons. It's like tidying up. And yet, I found myself growing restless. I'd successfully completed replays of several old favourites and was at a bit of a loose end, deciding what to play next, forced to conclude that even while I wasn't particularly trying to electrify myself with excitement, I also didn't want to be completely bored, and it seemed that I was. Bored, that is, of the same old games. So what now? Find new games to like? No. As established, that's work, and at present I'm off the clock. Then I recalled that I've been rather interested lately in watching YouTube videos of people challenging themselves to play games with weird self-imposed challenges. Persona without crafting, Dark Souls but only using consumables, Jurassic Park Trespasser with both feet shoved up your ass, etc. That felt like the way to go. I could retain my comfort zone playing something I'm very familiar with, but test my familiarity by forcing me to work around arbitrary rules. My long dormant old chap was immediately twitching at the thought. I had fond memories of going to Guitar Hero parties in my 20s, demonstrating my prowess by playing on expert with the controller held behind my head. Doubt I could do that these days without putting both my shoulders out. So, how would I challenge myself? A lot of the more exotic challenges I'd seen YouTubers subject themselves to seemed to turn into tortuous slogs. Turns out, yes, it is possible to beat generic action-adventure Sandbox 4 using only small pebbles, but it takes bloody ages and you have to spend hours at a time scraping up ammunition in gravel driveways. So I opted for something a little more classical. Iron Man runs. That is to say, no death runs. I would play the game normally, but with the understanding that the first time I die, for any reason, I have to abort the entire run. No excuses or crossed fingers. That felt like a nice, reasonable change of perspective. It's not even making the game any more difficult, really. It just means having to keep my wits about me. See, in playing my comfort zone games, I do have a bad habit of save scumming my way through, because when I'm in chill-out mode, tanking damage takes a whole of a lot less mental effort than trying to avoid it. The game I chose for my first Iron Man run was Black Mesa, a game I'm familiar enough with to be confident I could beat it without dying, but which still has enough tricks up its sleeve to make me not 100% confident, as I probably would be with the original Half-Life. I've always felt as I save scum my way through the intense soldier battles in Black Mesa that obviously I know in theory what tactics to apply, make use of cover, press advantages, know when to retreat, prioritize your health. There's just never been much motivation to take it that seriously, while quick load is bound to one key press. So I began the game, and being new to the Iron Man lifestyle and mindful of how intense the game gets in the back half, I set the difficulty to easy. Best I learn how to walk before I try to shove both feet up my ass. At first it was smooth sailing. The first few hours of Half-Life, and by extension Black Mesa, before the human soldiers show up and you're mainly threatened by zombies and alien wildlife, aren't that hard. It's pretty brutal if you happen to be an NPC scientist, but for the player it's mostly dodging head crabs and making sure not to stick your head in whirring fans. The first really hairy moment comes in that one bit in the giant warehouse where you have to jump across a sequence of crates hanging from the ceiling over a lethal drop, because Half-Life was a child of the 90s shooter era before everyone realised that jumping puzzles in FPSs are a load of spunk-filled digestive biscuits. And it was at that moment, facing the fact that for all my combat prowess, the slightest misjump will end my run right here, that I understood the appeal of the Iron Man run. Suddenly I was having to focus, double and triple check my trajectory to eliminate all possible avenues of failure. When I made the jumps, I involuntarily clenched my buttocks as if it would give me a couple more inches of air, and I don't mind telling you, the old chap was throbbing anew. I thought I'd have to wait until the firefights with soldiers for the death or glory adrenaline to kick in. Turns out all it took was to stand over an abyss without a safety net. Not that the firefights with soldiers weren't enhanced when I did finally reach them. Just as I'd hoped, I found myself really switching on when my brain went into survival mode. I found myself actually bringing out my most powerful weapons first instead of uselessly hoarding them, because survival in the moment was what mattered. I learned new tactics. I discovered that with Half-Life soldiers being so mobile and grenade happy, it was more effective to pressure them by charging their position than pop pop at them from behind cover, I made the effort to backtrack through the level for discarded pickups when my resources got slim. In short, I was having fun. I was using parts of my brain I felt like I hadn't used before. After each session, I found myself looking forward to going back. Not because it was my free time, but because I was enjoying the adrenaline. Before I knew it, I'd gotten as far as Surface Tension, the game's big centerpiece chapter where Gordon Freeman battles his way across occupied territory under the harsh desert sun. I was closing in on the bit where you get the rocket launcher and fight a helicopter, and was interested to see how that would turn out. It had always been a save scum safari in the past. Sadly, it was not to be. Before you get to the rocket launcher, there's that whole cliffside section that features a lot of precarious jumping, and maybe I'd gotten overconfident. Maybe I should have been more mindful of the absolute mess of a physics engine Source can be at times, but my Ironman run came to an anticlimactic end when I was trying to jump over a broken bridge, got caught on the terrain at the very last moment, and fell to a clumsy death. Well, what now, I thought. I toyed with the idea of declaring that death didn't count, because it was a bullshit instant no-escape death from a single minor error that was barely my own fault, rather than a slow whittling down of health through multiple unchecked mistakes. But I remembered the exciting jolt of adrenaline from earlier when I was at risk of the same bullshit instant death while jumping across the crates in the warehouse. Declaring that sort of death non-binding would instantly invalidate that feeling. Maybe I could instead pivot to minimal deaths run, see if I can get through the game with as few deaths as possible and then try to break that record. But that didn't feel like fun. Threatening myself with permadeath was what was making it exciting, not threatening myself with doing some adding up. In fact, playing the game at all anymore didn't feel like fun. I guess I could never be a speedrunner because I don't find much appeal in playing the start of a game 500 times in a row in pursuit of perfection, and I really couldn't be asked to start Black Mesa all over again. Somehow I'd subconsciously internalized the idea of permadeath, because at that moment of death, all my interest in playing the game died as well. The whole enhanced adrenaline feeling that came with the sense of high risk would be undermined if I continued playing it at all. Otherwise, what risk would there have been? To conclude the trip report, I found my experience with Ironman runs rather intriguing and worthy of further study. Compared to playing games normally, it's a bit like using crack compared to using cocaine. You get a more intense high, but a more intense come down, and a longer statutory sentence. Why not go to the comments and share any self-imposed challenges you found actually enhanced the experience of a game you've gotten too familiar with? Call to action, call to action. And remember to drop a like and a subscribe. Self-loathe, self-loathe.
This video is brought to you by Nord Current Labs and their upcoming game Chains of Freedom, a high-stakes, turn-based tactics game inspired by classics like XCOM. The world has gone to hell, and you're the only one who can save it. Command an elite military squad through perilous missions filled with danger, deceit, and moral dilemmas, the three tastiest flavors of intrigue. In order to unravel a complex plot involving a rogue scientist, mind control serums, and a government teetering on the edge of collapse, you'll need to be prepared. That's where your squad comes in. Saute together a mirepoix of weapons, ranging from meat hooks and axes to flamethrowers and mortars. And don't forget to enhance your characters with unique abilities by mixing and matching biocrystals found in the world. Hell yeah, biocrystals, that's the umami of upgrades. I shouldn't write ads when I'm this hungry. Hungry for Chains of Freedom, which releases later this year on PC. So head on over to Steam right now to wishlist the game and start tasting that sweet, sweet intrigue.